The meeting to order. Just a quick note with the AC on, people are feeling pretty muggy in here. If you're having trouble hearing, please just say, hey, could you speak up? Or we'll turn it off too, but it seems like a good thing to have on right now. Anyway, I'm calling the meeting of September 23rd, 2019 of the ACSD board to order. And we will begin with a quick round of board member introductions. And then I think we have a few more introductions of some of our new administrators. But Betty, would you mind leading us off?
Betty Kapumbe.
Chip.
Jen Newseeder.
Amy McLash.
Jory Jacobite. Lorraine Morse.
Peter Conlon.
Peter Burrows, Superintendent.
Peg Martin.
Mary Gill.
Mary Cullinane.
Victoria Jetty.
Davina Desmarais.
Suzanne Buck.
And I would like to introduce three new administrators to ACSD this year. We have Heather Robb from Cornwall, our Cornwall principal. Nicole Carter, our Weybridge principal. This is very formal. And Matthew Frankman, our Bridport principal. You all want to share a quick snippet, like 1 minute each? Good.
Good answer.
Go for it. You're first.
Great. My name is Matthew Brinkman. I grew up in Westport, New York, across the lake. I moved to Alaska after serving in the Navy and was a principal in Alaska for 3 years, taught math and science up there. Then I spent 6 years as principal at Bradford Elementary on the other side of the state before moving back home to Westport and waiting for the Bridport job to open up. And then
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Nicole Carter. I moved to Vermont for the schools. I was on the West Coast for 20 years, and I had a little boy, and I said, I gotta go someplace where the schools are really good. Then, after moving here, 1 year down south, I moved to Middlebury, Sylvester Place. My son is a 6th grader at Salisbury Elementary School. So excited to be working in my community and to get to know all of you, because I read about you in the Addy all the time and all of your hard work and good work. And so I'm just excited to get to know my community better and to help out anywhere I can.
It's the rain.
it's the rain.
The monsoon.
They're going to make the rain go away?
I will try to speak over the rain. I'm Heather Robb. I moved here, my family moved here this summer in late July. We moved to Vermont, back to Vermont sort of, although I've never lived here before. My husband grew up here. We spent every summer here for years, and we wanted to come closer to family, which is how we ended up here. We moved from Colorado Springs, where I was an assistant principal at a language immersion school with 3 different languages. And before that, we lived in Wisconsin for a very long time, almost more than 20 years actually. And there, the school I was at there did start the IB program just as the diploma program while I was there. And so I was part of that process. They are currently, so many years later, they are currently actually going through the MYP and PYP process just like we are here.
Thank you all very much. Any other administrators who are here, would you mind introducing yourselves?
My name is Amy Piper. I'm the Dean of Students at Hannaford. Vicky Wells, Director of Student Services.
Bruce McIntyre, Director of Facilities.
Caitlin Steele, Director of Teaching and Money. Freddie Gelman, Business Manager.
Thank you.
And Will.
Oh, I'm sorry, Will. I'm Steve Haas, Technology Director. Will, maybe we can put you on the spot for a moment. For those of us who are still having trouble with two-step authentication, would you give us your latest recommendation?
Sure. So whoever hasn't set it up yet, I've moved your account to an unrestricted area so you can check your mail. But obviously, we'd like to get it set up sooner than later. If you don't want to deal with it and you want us to just help you do it, if you want to stop by room E107 of the high school and we can just set it up for you. I'll also hang around afterward if you have your computer with you and we can get you set up later on tonight. You know, we're still chipping away at it. We have people coming in and contacting us every day. We're inching closer all the time to having 100% of our users have it set up, but we figured it would take a little while, so. We're in our office until at least 3 every day, sometimes quite often later than that. So. Thank you.
All right, well, this is the part of our agenda where we open the floor up to the public for public comment. It's a time for us to listen to what folks have to say. And given that, we have a lot of folks here, but I'm not sure how many are here for the public comment period. Just open the floor up if anybody has anything they'd like to say.
Hi, my name's Millard Cox. I'm from Lisbon, and I'm referring to the facility evaluation outline which we received last meeting. Thank you very much for providing that. I'm looking at concept design part 2. I just have a question about the second part of that, which says identify options. And the first statement there under A is focus will be on consolidating up to 3 schools. And I want to know 2 things, if you can respond in writing, please. First, what does consolidating mean in that context? And secondly, I thought all the schools in the district were being consolidated. So why does it say up to 3? If you could answer those for me, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah, my name's Steve Cash from Ripton. The first one is just a question. If you could respond in writing, that'd be great, or verbally if you're able to do that. Do you have any updates on the FAQ section for the website? Granted, the 2-step authentication kind of issues you guys are working through, it may not be there yet, but I understand that. But if you could let me know where that stands, that'd be great. And then I looked at the board meetings that are planned. I don't mean to be yelling in your guys' ears either.
No, you're fine.
But the school board meeting that is currently planned to be held in Ripton is planned for late spring. I think it's either April or May. I can't remember off the top of my head when exactly it is. But I would like to ask the board to consider holding that meeting in Ripton at an earlier date. I do realize that you guys have these on the schedules and that will present certain challenges. But I think the people of Ripton have engaged in the discussions with the school board, and I think that if the school board is interested in hearing from the town and the people who live there, that a meeting earlier in the year, especially before facilities decisions were made, could be helpful. So just wanted to make that suggestion. Then lastly, I've never been on a school board. I'm sure there are many things you need to pay attention to and balance. And I appreciate the work that you all do. And I look forward to continue to engaging with all of you to provide the children, including my son, of this district, the best education opportunities available to them. So I know it's not easy work you all do.
Thanks, Steve. So I will just say that, yes, the 2-step authentication has delays with some technical glitches. What is our status?
It's up.
It's up. Okay. As of today, it's up. All right. Thank you for letting us answer that. All right. So we have the minutes from September 9th. A motion to approve those. Lorraine moved it.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Jen. Any questions, changes? Great. Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes of September 9th, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
I'm abstaining.
Not yet. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstaining?
Yes.
We've got Amy, Peg, Chip,
And me.
Mary Gill abstaining. All right. If I can figure out how to operate this better. Bills, not to be forgotten.
Yes. Two sets of bills. Betty and I signed bills on September 16th. General fund of $590,000, $579.45. Plus payroll of $834,188.52. For a total of $1,424,767.97. And then today, Chip and I signed bills. General fund of $106,240.52, plus payroll of $1,177,224.51, for a total of $1,283,465.03. I move to pay the bills.
Any questions? If none, all those in favor of paying the bills as reported, say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstaining? All right. Okay. As folks have heard or maybe have read, our high school principal is retiring, and that sets in motion a hiring process. And just to sort of remember that kind of the setup is that this is really, it's a process led by the superintendent. He's in charge of hiring the principals. And so I've asked Peter to give us kind of an update as to where that process stands and how it's going to unfold.
So I think I sent the initial announcement to all of you, and we're right now in the process of getting a committee together. Application deadline is Wednesday, and then we'll be selecting a group. It's going to have one ACSD board member, 2 administrators, 2 faculty, 1 IB coordinator, 2 staff, 2 students, and 2 parents. And a lot of people have expressed interest and are really excited to be part of this. As you all know, this is a really, really big hire. It's a really important position. It sets the culture for a very large school. And so I think a lot of people see the importance of this hire and want to be a part of it, which is great. We are getting the group together. The committee is going to get together first on October 7th. I've been working to put together information about the high school to send out. What I'd like to do is make this both a local posting, but also a national and international one. And I think given who we are and what we're doing, I think we will have interest from folks that may not normally look at moving to Vermont. So we're working to try to get the word out in a lot of different listservs and places that people might be looking, whether they're teaching or not really teaching, but probably an administrator overseas that's coming back to the States, someone with IB experience from other states as well. And we were actually last week talking with the head of IB public schools, who was a former superintendent as well and went through a number of these searches. So we're trying to uncover all stones to make sure that people know about the position. The position's going to close on December 6th. So between October 7th and December 6th, we'll really be kind of marketing and getting the word out. The timing of this, I put it a little bit before where I think most principal positions start kind of wrapping up towards the end of January, early February. So my goal was to try to get this a little bit early, but not so early that people are not really looking and all of a sudden they wake up and look and say, oh, this position's already closed. So I think the timing is good. We plan to do the final interview at the end of the process on January 13th. And as I mentioned, we need 1 ACSD board member on the committee, which... Right.
So for those of you who might be interested in serving on this, send me an email. But bear in mind that these are generally daytime meetings. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, we've got one's 12 to, or 2 of them are 12 to 6. Site visits during a week where I mean, those are kind of all over the map in terms of timing, and then the final day. So I think it's not really time intensive. It's fairly spread out.
So yeah, so just thinking about the commitment that it would require, send me an email. I can only pick one person, so I apologize in advance, and yeah, we'll just go from there. Any questions for Peter on that process? So again, you feel you'll have somebody in place, offer made mid-January?
That's the plan.
Mr. Chip?
There's a couple of things in this process, obviously, the process I hear, but, our unique situation, we have a long-term principal. It's been here,
25.
25
years.
now?
I was on board when we hired Bill, so
Wow.
I've seen the whole process, and I hired him as chair. So that's one thing which is unique. I think not many high schools have principals that have been around for that long.
Yeah,
Okay?
yeah.
Number two, obviously, the International Baccalaureate puts us in a unique position, as you stated. So, I think that expands potentially the numbers of people who would be interested, hopefully. But we also have to be, I think, conscious of the fact that that's not the only part. We need someone who knows this culture and or can adapt and learn to the culture too. So I think there's some challenges in this, as far as tremendous opportunity also, just because we're sitting right here.
Yeah. And I had those conversations with David Weiss, who I mentioned earlier, the IB head of schools, who said he went through the same process, an IB high school that he was hiring for, and said, IB experience is nice and it's a benefit, but it shouldn't be a make or break. It's really more about the person. I think, as you mentioned too, the culture piece is really, really critical. And I know when I first got here, people were putting bets to see if I would adapt or not. So I do think you have to have someone who isn't so driven with some kind of methodology they're carrying from somewhere that they're not listening and not present. I think that part is really critical.
That's why I sort of said it, because I just feel that it can be an opportunity, but a little bit of a trap. When we get these exotic figures coming from Singapore or something like that, right? No, I'm being...
Oregon.
In actual fact, I think it's still really important that all the committee members and you taking that into consideration.
Well, and I think, as you mentioned too, it's different to be following someone who's been in the position for 25 years.
Right.
So that's something just to keep in mind too.
I just want to commend you for including students on the hiring process, because I think they will have a lot to say.
Absolutely.
And contribute, so thank you for doing that.
All right. Okay, so speaking of International Baccalaureate and schools, tonight we are sort of, this is our night with what it sounds like is a bit of a traveling roadshow presentation on the Hannaford Career Center. Dana Peterson, the director, is here. The chair of the Hannaford Career Center board is here, because she's always here. And I guess I'll turn the floor over to you, kind of tell us, yes, Caitlin, I'm sorry.
I just want to suggest that maybe a few of us get out of the way.
Okay.
Excuse us.
So Dana, welcome. Let us give us a sense of why you're here and what we're going to learn.
Well, let me introduce the rest of our presentation team. Kim Farnham, school board member and resident in New Haven from Mount Airy District. Jake Burnham, our engineering and architecture and computer science instructor. So this evening we're going, and Oh, Wendy, which one? Oh, Wendy's over there.
Dana.
Wendy Pratt. Suzanne Buck. Sorry, Suzanne Buck is also.
Dana, I'm over here too.
Wendy Pratt is working on, she's our math coach as well as our curriculum coordination person as we work into the IB process. And Suzanne is here representing certainly the Career Center and our Community Outreach Committee. So this evening we'll be talking to you a little bit about our mission and vision process and talking to you about how the IBCP program fits into that profile. So with that in mind, we have a couple of learning targets and Jake's going to review those.
Every good proficiency-based school model starts with learning targets at the end of the lesson. So in no particular order, except for they're numbered 1 through 4. It's our hope that at the end of our traveling roadshow that you are able to describe what the IBCP program is, why it's a learning opportunity for your students, and how also be able to identify how you can assist us all as really who we're talking about are all of our students.
So the Career Center is going through a renewal process looking at mission and vision for the 2019-20 school year. And at the end of this school year, we're expecting to have a draft of a new mission statement as well as a vision statement, which currently doesn't exist. And it's going to focus on who we are and who we serve, and the residents of Addison County are all of the folks that we serve, and the 3 major districts are Addison Central, Addison Northwest, and Mount Abraham Unified School District. We also serve So at the Hannaford Career Center, there are 3 branches of our educational focus, and that is the primary one is our secondary programs with 13 technical programs and 4 pre-tech programs, our adult education classes, and then the Makery, which we have initiated just about a year ago, actually 10 months ago, as a place for people to imagine and experiment, network, collaborate, and create for personal and professional growth. And we just passed 40 members. Our center is open on Thursday evenings from 5 to 9. But just a few quick facts from the Patricia Hannaford Career Center. There are 13 secondary programs. New programs include our computer science, which is now in its 2nd year, and our construction technology, which we just reintroduced after a 7-year hiatus, and it's going very, very well in the first month of programming. Just for comparison, in the fall of 2017, the Career Center served 278 students. In the fall of 2018, we served 347 students. And this fall, we are serving, actually, I have to update that. This was prior to the start of school. It's over 450 students from around Addison County, actually Rutland County, and Chittenden County. We provide co-op experiences, cooperative education opportunities for 60 to 80 students per year. And our open house attendance for the last 2 years has surpassed 400 in February. We have an open house coming up next week. It's October 3rd, it's Thursday evening. It's the night of the Makery. If you're interested, please feel free to come by and see. That's an open house for the back to school crowd. So students will be there certainly, and their parents, but we open it up to the entire community. But the events that we run in February are really our showcase events, and we have exceeded 400 people in the last 2 years. Evening programming for adult ed includes some of the offerings that I have up here, including welding, basic carpentry, Excel, phlebotomy, Google QuickBooks, LNA, CPR first aid, etc. So we have quite a few adult ed offerings that many people are not aware of. In addition, we have a collaborative agreement with the Vermont Adult Learning and the United Way, as well as the Department of Labor, and we run what's called the VT YouthWorks program. It is now a year-round program, and it runs 2 semesters in the fall and spring, and then a semester in the summer. The summer is a little more condensed because of the timing, but it serves those who are 18 to 24-year-olds. They may have obtained a diploma, they may not have obtained a diploma, they may not have graduated from high school, but that is a great experience that we've been able to offer right on site at the Career Center. And finally, the Makery. And the labs that are currently available are our sewing lab, our construction technology lab, and the 3D design and printing engineering lab. And we're considering opening up 2 or 3 more this fall. In addition, we have collaborated with all 3 of our sending districts. We are really proud of the partnerships that we've established with Middlebury Union High School, Mount Abraham High School, and Virgins. The collaboration has been on scheduling. That's why we think we've been able to offer so many more students an opportunity to attend programming at the Career Center. We work also on proficiency tracking and reporting, program acceptance criteria, and coordinate on professional development days. In 2019-20, we have a schedule, an administrative schedule that's set for the entire year. Last year, we were able to get all of the administrators from Addison County together to work on some common initiatives. And I'll put in a plug for Bill Lawson in his 25th year for leadership he demonstrated on our cabinet for being active and engaged. And finally, PAHCC is partnering with each of our sending schools on at least one project initiative, which we relate to student learning and student learning opportunities. And this year, we're going to be inviting the school counselors to some of our meetings, and we're going to be expanding that. And we're also collaborating with Addison County Economic Development and Addison County Workforce Alliance on offering a reality fair in the spring for gym students. So that's just something that we've been doing. So just to give you a little bit of an update. Kim, you want to-
So is it, I'm currently from the Mount Abe, where I'm a community at large member, just to clarify that a little bit, and serve as the vice chairman right now with Suzanne as the chairperson. And Lorraine is also a member of our board, by the way. Very valuable veteran.
Sorry, Lorraine, I forgot you too.
So like many boards, we have all these subcommittees and so on, and our, looking at a community engagement meeting started with, us kind of looking at open house and all those things that are well attended, but how, what else can we do better? And because we have to kind of market ourselves a little bit more than most public schools, we kind of started with that premise, and then looked at the vision statement, which didn't exist, and the mission statement, which has not been updated for a very, very long time, and said, we need to address these things. So again, subcommittee, our board is a little unique in that we have community business people on our board, which helps us when it comes to curriculum and things like that. Their input is invaluable, especially we talked about earlier with the construction group coming back. They came to us and said, hey, we need to do this. Our average age of construction and working people out of the 50s, so we need to do this. And it was full, like immediately. And our understanding with that was, well, okay, that's fine, but we need partnerships with you to do internships and things like that. And that also occurs at our institution. The contacting consultant to work with us, I think it's been very, very helpful. We have a marketing person, we have another person that's professionally working with us, and it has with most of the districts around here. And the communication protocol, we didn't really have one. And then as you replace personnel, as you know, you're like, okay, well, what did they really do? And if you have some long-time personnel people, that becomes even more complicated because they have all this stuff that it's not necessarily written down, and they leave, and you're like, okay, who's going to do that? Anyway, and then our actions, conducting forum opportunities in all of the communities. This is kind of our beginning of, as Dana said, the road show. We've been to Virgins already, and tomorrow night we're at Mount Abe. So to get input from you, we're all struggling with similar issues, whether it's enrollment or buildings or whatever it is. And we just want to let you know we understand. Thank you for taking the time to let us come here. That's another piece. I know how busy you are. We are too. And just appreciating that piece. We're going to rotate some of those meetings in different schools. We've got permission from Virgins. We're not sure exactly how that's going to look just yet. But we will be back to get your input regarding our vision and and mission statement, because that's important to us, that it becomes a community engagement with all our sending schools. Thank you.
So I get to do the very beginning of our vision and mission piece. So what we're asking for is, you want to be Dana for me? So I'll wander around. So what we're looking for is for everyone to write down 3 or 4 words that come to mind when you first think of the Career Center. It can be as simple as school, education, whatever. But 5 words that come to mind, and we're compiling them all. Where'd you stop?
4 words in a sentence or 4 separate words?
They can be 4 separate words, they can be 4 words in a sentence, they can be 4 phrases.
We're looking for creativity.
It can be a paragraph.
A haiku.
Don't get me started.
You could have the whole vision.
We've seen all sorts of stuff.
I mean, we've seen some very creative ideas. We had somebody ask us at Virgins, well, actually, their 4 words were move career center to Virgins. That was their words. So I'm not really sure how we could pick up the building and move it, but that was a suggestion. So we're going to take these words and we'll do it into, use them as a way to start our mission and vision and thinking about what it means to everyone. So keep those for tomorrow night, yeah. And no, you don't have to identify in the card where you live. If you want to, that's fine, you don't have to. And I will tell you the reason we're doing this. The reason we're doing this before we let Jake speak, because we learned, as the teachers do, we learned after the last time around that if we do it after Jake speaks, they all use Jake's words back to us. So it was like, great, they all know what IB is, and proficiencies, and everything else. We're like, how did they get so educated? And they were like, Jake.
Must have been a good lesson.
Must have been. So now we're going to do it first.
They assimilated the learning targets very well.
Doesn't work.
So while folks are finishing up, we're happy to...
If you can give me as many words as you like, dear.
So turn it over
Like,
to
yeah.
Jake, talk a little bit about the
Before I get into it, I just want to say what a privilege and honor it is to be able to speak to the board, of which the district is a supervisory union that I'm a product of. So that's kind of cool. All the way background. Everything that you're about to see was work that was in large part spearheaded by Caitlin and the Flexible Pathways Grant last year, and the visit that we had to Denver. I hope you see a lot of the enthusiasm that was the light bulb moments for us last September. You know what IB is. The career program is a piece of IB that is complementary to the DP. They're not the same, they're not different. So if IB were to be a tree, this might be what it looks like. And we're familiar with the IB graphic organizer of their structure, and this is the career model. We're going to break this down a bit for us. You all have a great prior knowledge around IB, so I can skip some of the stuff, but you are also already versed in the acronyms that are going to be flying at you, so we'll try to slow down in that spot. There are 3 elements to the career program. The first is the career-related study. The easiest way to think about this is it's your career and tech ed program. It's what the Career Center already offers. For a career-related study to qualify for the IBCP, it needs to be a 2-year program, and it needs to be accredited in one of these 4 ways, which all of our programs currently already are, which is really cool. So for a CP program, if you're keeping score at home, check off box number 1, which is pretty great. The second part of the career program is the integration of the IB courses, formerly called the DP courses, the Diploma Program courses. So within IB, they're going through some revision as well. These are still those 11th and 12th grade courses from the 6 core subject areas. A CP candidate needs to select from 2 of those 6 that are complementary to their career-related study, complementary to their career tech ed program. The third element of the CP program is really, really exciting. It's the CP core. Within the DP program, you have theory of knowledge, you have CAS, and you have extended essay. Those don't exist in CP. Their equivalents exist. So we have personal and professional skills, service learning, reflective project, and language development. The reason that there's a 4th language development within the CP is because a DP student has to take a language. The CP student does not. So that component from the IB philosophy is built into the CP core. Thumbs up, nodding, cool. Awesome students. We're programmed so well to just... In a nutshell, that's what the CP program looks like at IB schools that offer CP all around the world. There are 2 types of CP schools. One is where the school already has the DP program. Imagine MUHS having a CP program. Okay? So it's the DP and CP under the same roof. The students that take the DP can also take the CP, have access to CP, they can make that choice. The second option is CP2, and this is where our light bulb went boing. You don't need to be a DP school to offer the career-related program. So we at the Career Center can ratchet up our IB flag, and now students in Virgins, students in Mount Abe, students statewide, because of the way our career and tech ed model works, can come and experience an IB education and all of these great things that we already know about in our learner profile and the approaches to teaching and all of those things. Everybody in the whole state now gets to come experience that, not just our Middlebury, not just our Addison Central cohort. Sorry, Addison Central, you found a good thing, and now we're blowing the lid off, which is pretty cool. Next, please. Thank you. Examples of what students might be interested in. Hey, I teach computer science, so we're going to look at that one first. You take your 2 years of computer science. Also, by the way, you sit for your AP computer science exam, so that's cool. You take 2 IB courses that are relevant to your CS pathway, so that's math, and maybe you want to do CS in some other part of the world, so you're studying a language related to where you'd like to travel. You take your CP core course. That's really great. But what if I don't want to be a CP candidate, but I want to get some of the pieces of it? So we have a student on the right who's interested in theater, and they want to take the CP core course, and maybe they're also a Middlebury student, so they get an IB course as well. They can get the pieces of it, much like right now your MUHS students take TOK as a graduation requirement. Students can access that core bit, whether they're a candidate or not, certificate candidate or not, which is pretty cool. 2 other examples, it doesn't matter where the student is from, they can have the same opportunity. If I'm into organic food production, then I get to take plant and animal science. I take an entrepreneur class so that I can start my own business or refuel my family farm, et cetera, et cetera. The opportunities are really, really endless. With the DP course load that MUHS has, specifically MUHS students have a really big opportunity with CP. They can get that IB credential certificate in a focused area instead of, not that there's anything wrong with it, but the broad stroke of DP with the 6 core areas. That CRS gets really driven right into what they're interested in, what they know they want to go do and be and feel and taste and touch, and that's really cool. Thank you, Dana. So some things that you already know about why we want to do it. The learner profile is huge. To approach everything through these 10 key areas is really cool. I don't need to get into any more of this because you're living it right now in your 4th year of IB? 3rd year.
It's our 3rd year, but our 4th year. Just like your example
Same,
of
but
the
it's
tree,
not.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's complementary.
PBGRs statewide, many of them are speaking directly to transferable skills. And within IB, the approaches to teaching and learning are littered with transferable skills. And these things now get authentically embedded and assessed in the CRS and the CP core, and they're already present in the IB coursework. So we get that plug as well. We're talking flexible pathways to PBGR completion in the state, because ultimately that's still what we also have to take care of. So that's really cool. And our next plug is...
Just interrupt you for a moment.
Yeah.
Just for those of us who didn't read it in the small literature below, maybe it's still there, PBGRs.
Proficiency-based graduation requirements.
Okay, and
It's
CRS?
Act 77.
Yeah, CRS?
Career-related study. So
Okay.
that's our career and tech ed program. Over here, you can't see it because it's in white.
There we go.
Sorry. CRS equals CTE.
Got it.
Yeah. Equal signs. Mathematical operators. English class, that's good. So we have, last one, boom. This pushes our tech ed courses, our CTE, beyond proficient, not just doing the expectation, but this gives students really every opportunity that they can think of to show what they know, the way they want to show it. And so they're doing work that's like college entry, business startup, going way beyond just what we're asking them to do. So in the PBGR model, that's extending on our learning scale. IBDP is a 7-point scale. So we're pushing that 7, right? And it's authentic. It's happening in the context of the career-related study that the student is there for to begin with, which is really cool. The tech center is no longer a thing that they'd like to do but can't because of scheduling, because of it doesn't offer it the right way. It's now the thing that they choose to do because it's really great. So, copied and pasted from IB website, this is things that students say about the career program. And if you are really fast at reading and you're also an employer, wouldn't you like to hire people that have this to say about themselves? Ta-da! It's great. And more stuff. I mean, this group is well versed in the salespersonship of IB. But it's not just sales. Right? Like, that's the thing. It's not just sales. It's the real deal. And you see it, and you hear it when you interact with it. And that's what we're so excited about doing, is bringing it all home to the full county. Next, please. Full county, and really the full state if they want. And here's the important bits. It's a 3-year authorization process, so we're in year 1 right now. Fast forward, that means your current 8th graders are hopefully the first CP candidate certificate earners. I would love to answer questions because that's my job.
I'll jump in. So I just want to be clear. So a student who wants to attend the Career Center, sort of like a student who wants to be in high school, doesn't want to take on
Yes.
DP, doesn't have to take on CP,
Nope.
but can still get those
Yes.
those technical courses that they would like.
Yes.
And
Great clarification. Thank you.
And for a student from Mount Airy, Virginia, who wants to get the CP, they can do that and get those things that the CP requires within the Career Center, such as foreign language. Is that what I'm hearing?
If language in a foreign context is their IB program of choice, they're one of their 2 minimum IB course choices.
Okay. Got it.
Then we have the capacity to meet that need.
Okay.
A really fun opportunity to think about, and we've set it around the table, but we haven't started to push pencil and paper, is to figure out how it's possible perhaps to get Virgins and non-age students into a Middlebury DP classroom, because it's right up the hallway. Instead of having to recreate that course, or instead of having to pay a fee for an IB online course, it exists, it's 100 feet away. Let's go do that. The figuring of that out is way above my scale, but it seems like it should be a thing that's easily figured out. Kayla?
Is the Career Center planning on offering one or more IB courses so that a student could actually take them on the ground and on site?
Yeah, so right now our plan, great question, follow-up. Our plan right now is very much so to offer something in the Lang Lit core subject area, because all of our high schools have a 4-year English requirement. So we would be putting up bricks if we didn't help the student get that component. And we have options for what that second IB on the ground course would look like, depending on where the most authentic overlap happens between all of our program areas. We are all doing something related to math, we're all doing something related to science, we all lead to some form of business pathway. So what that singular overlap looks like in a way that best helps the sending schools to get that student to meet their PBGRs, because that's a thing that's really important at that homeschool, sending school level. That's what we hear a lot, like how is this going to help with PBGR? So at a starting point, that's kind of where we have to plant those first 2 flags. What IB courses will help the most with meeting those PBGRs?
And giving the greatest flexibility. So right now, thought is leaning towards an entrepreneurship focus, but that may change. And then the other is that we are exploring access to a variety of online services that we could offer at the Career Center through partners that we've begun to make appointments. It would cover the large majority of interests.
What's been the response of the other 2 schools? Obviously, Career Center's genesis of this undertaking came about a lot because this high school went that direction first.
Yep.
So I guess there's been 2 questions, not only that, as to how the other schools are responding in a way. Does this complicate their lives, or is this, obviously, I see it as a tremendous benefit for the Career Center because attract some kids in ways that aren't attracting now potentially from those places. But I don't know how that, just as you say, there's a lot of coordination.
Yep. There's a lot of coordination, but it's something that can't be figured out. I do want to say that it's a fabulous opportunity for every student, whether they were planning on coming to the Career Center or not. The CP Core course, you don't have to come take a career-related study, a CTE, for that Middlebury student coming. So, related to your first question, Wendy and I met, and Dana met with the 3 district curriculum leaders, and I'm failing to remember their names, but it was with Caitlin in Bristol last March, and basically they were like, yeah, this is great. First question, how does it meet PBGRs? So we've done a lot of trying to figure out that at the high altitude level. In Virgins, the reception was wonderful. And in an authentic way, not just like happy audience member nodding and smiling and I'm here on my own time. It was, they were pumped. They were pumped.
It's because it provides opportunities for students that would otherwise not.
Well, that's what I mean. I see that just from your enthusiasm as a, some of that too, but I think it's students has that opportunity that they didn't have before. So obviously, from this board, that was some of our early questions. Well, how does the Career Center actually come into this equation? Because we couldn't quite see it, right? Those of us that making that decision that it was going to be separate and not pursue the same mindset.
Jim, I think somebody who's been on the board for many, many years and was on the Mount A board prior to that, the scheduling was the biggest obstacle for not only my children years ago, and unless they got all their core subjects done early and have this option, first year we have 9th and 10th grade students at the Career Center from Mount A. So excited. And I credit Dana with working on that schedule, getting those administrative meetings set up, and regularly communicating what's going on. Also the introduction of the Career Center at a younger age from Mount A. For Jen, same thing. A lot of board members aren't even familiar with what goes on in our school. And I think, for us to do the road show, whatever you want to talk about, and where it goes, over 70% of the students that complete at the Career Center have gone on to secondary ed. And it's growing. It's more and more and more. I know my daughter went through the design illustration program and has had 3 jobs since she's 25, and it started there. And it was Lisa presenting industry-ready software. She went to Drexel and she was way ahead because she had that. And their connections with the alumni, with Jake's alumni, all the departments, I think, fuels the expertise in the level of curriculum that we can drive. So I think those pieces are important to us, and obviously my enthusiasm is up just watching my kids excel.
I'm encouraged by this.
See people looking at their watches, so I want to be respectful of their time.
I've got one more question, if you don't mind. And that is, you said you got the question, okay, how's this going to help us meet proficiency-based graduation requirements?
Yep.
But don't you have that question whether you do this or not? I mean, aren't you struggling with that? Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Jen?
That's quick. With the high school diploma program or certificates, the students can earn credit toward secondary education.
Yes.
So with the secondary high school college.
Yes.
Is that same true with the?
Almost all of our programs currently already offer credit to a post-secondary institution. Natural Resource Management earns it to Paul Smith in New York. Our Civil Engineering and Architecture program earns credit at RIT. So it's that structure is already in place. What CP really does, and if we're being intellectually honest with ourselves, I think it's what we want it to do. It's not eroding DP, it's providing IB for more. And if that's our goal, then CP helps us all get there, which is really cool. And last little fun story is that early in your process, I was at a dinner party with Caitlin, and maybe it was just me that had too much wine, but I think we both had too much wine. And we were having a little disagreement about the virtue of IB. And I was like, this thing. And then CP happened. And it was like, I get it. Because it's the student, the target population is different, it's bigger, it's some overlap. I mean, there's this Venn thing happening, but like, it's something that's so much bigger. You can't get your arms around it. It's good. It's not just good for one. It's not good for over here. It's the whole package. Goodness. I'm not an English teacher.
That's right.
I'm happy to entertain more questions.
Are there any further burning questions? If not,
if you think of them later,
yes.
There are several of you that have my email, Dana's email.
I think it's fair to say this is great. We really look forward to watching, seeing the progress as you go forward, and the complementary opportunities are fabulous. And so, yeah, it's great. It's terrific. We hope your enthusiasm remains as strong as well.
Thank you for your words with our mission. As you know, that work has to start early with IB alignment. So, yeah, great.
Thank you all.
Popcorn today.
All right, well, from that to unaudited fund balances.
Now finally the good stuff.
We've all been waiting for it.
Can you do some tasking?
Oh, sure.
I can do tasking.
Do people need a moment to stretch? Or are we good to keep going?
Whatever everybody wants.
All right, we'll press on, but feel free to get up and move about if you need to.
Get a cookie.
Yeah, get a cookie. All right, Brittany, if you don't mind raising your voice and yelling at us.
I would love to. Yeah. So, we actually just completed our audit last week. We don't actually have the results yet, but they did not find any major adjustments, so I don't expect these numbers that I'm presenting to change substantially, though I always do present it with a disclaimer that it's unaudited. So you'll see that we're ending the fiscal year with a projected fund balance of about $1.4 million. And when you subtract what we've already committed to FY20 for the transfer to reserve, that leaves us with $1,282,677 that would be available for use in the FY21 budget. The major variances here were really local revenues, so we had a pretty significant uptick in tuition revenue, primarily because of the closure of Rochester Middle and High School, so we got some more tuition students there at MUMS and MUHS. We also had some higher than anticipated state revenue that came our way related to special education students. And then in terms of the expenditure side, most of the savings was really in special education, and that just as a result of sometimes we think we'll need out-of-district placements or transportation, and that didn't end up coming to fruition. We did spend about $100,000 more in HRA expenses, which is the health reimbursement accounts, than budgeted, but we didn't need to make a transfer from our HRA reserve because there were other savings. We talked a number of times throughout the year about the savings that we had in wages as a result of early retirements from FY18. We did have some savings in the area of transportation, and that was a result of eliminating a duplicative route, so we were able to eliminate a route without affecting any services to students. And then we didn't have to use our contingency at all. And then there were just some other, what I would characterize as fairly small areas. We had a savings in workers' comp and property insurances. We have to estimate those, as you know, and then we'll talk about it in a little bit. We start our budget process pretty early, so we have to do some estimates for some of those numbers, and sometimes they come in higher, and luckily they came in lower this year. But other than that, things were pretty close. We didn't have any really unexpected hires. We didn't have to hire staff that we weren't anticipating. So that $1.2 million fund balance sounds like a lot, but it's in line with what similar to what the UD3 board used to run for a fund balance. It's 3 to 4% of our overall budget. You can't really budget for a fund balance except for our contingency, and the swing can easily go the other way. So that's why it's good and important for us to have these funds to put in reserve. And so when we get a little bit further into budget season, we'll talk about what to do with that $1 million. Historically, our practice has not been to use it to buy down the tax rate. As we've talked about, that can sort of create a rubber band effect. So the following year, you don't have that. You use one-time monies. Sounds like deja vu for the state. And then you have to make that up somewhere. So typically, we've transferred it into a reserve fund. We have 3 reserve funds right now. We have the capital reserve, the HRA reserve, and what we call the Ed Fund reserve. And the Ed Fund reserve and the HRA reserve ultimately would probably be combined with the state taking over bargaining at the state level for healthcare. Are there questions about the fund balance?
Victoria and I heard this presentation also as members of the Finance Committee. Just to state, this is probably a very good scenario. It's in the right place. It's not too low, it's not too high. It's right where we want to be. So last year, the fund balance was $128,000, which was markedly smaller than what we've ever had for quite a while. So this is much more comfortable, but we do have lots of challenges ahead too, so it's not always found money, it's just, I think, good budgeting and good expenditures in ways that lead us to this point.
Yeah.
Well, and I would add too that the delta this year was created with not much change in our overall approach to the budget between the 100 and the 1 million. So that shows you the variance year to year.
Yeah, there's so many variables that you have to be aware of, but you can't control.
Brittany,
Yes.
when I was reading through the expenditures, could you just talk a little bit about the out-of-district tuition? Just because it was hard to read because it says substantial in, out
I'm
of.
not sure what was happening there. I think I went temporarily, I don't know what I was thinking. There was a substantial savings in out-of-district tuition, is what I meant. Poor proofreading on my part. I should have sent it to Caitlin for proofreading.
I assumed that there was just a word left out.
But yes,
Okay.
it was a substantial savings in out-of-district tuition.
Yeah.
And then also, Peter had talked in the past about how we're trying to sort of standardize this financial report and make it more digestible. I did add a small part on the third page, which I think I'd like to do moving forward for fiscal year end. It's your reserve balances. So you can see what you have in Ed Reserve, Healthcare Reserve, and Capital Reserve at the end of FY19. And you'll recall that the special article for FY20 was to transfer that it was 123,801 was the number that we're going to be transferring into Capital Reserve in FY20.
Okay.
So you can see what we have there.
Representing sort of last year's fund balance.
Yeah, so there is a small period of time where we have 2 years worth of fund balance before we transfer it.
Yeah.
And then the healthcare, as you mentioned, presumably over this year, assuming it gets done.
Yeah.
Through whatever means, we'll have a number that then we will move that into one of these other balances, which we can do on our own.
Yes, the board.
Right.
I don't understand why we want to do that, even if they're telling us how much it has to be. Why wouldn't we still want to designate certain money for healthcare?
Well, you could use your Ed Reserve for that if you want to. The HRA is just more restricted.
The healthcare reserve, you mean?
Yeah, the healthcare reserve, and we're not sure what that benefit's going to look like, so we may or may not need that, as well as the fact that we'll be going on 2 to 3 years of history, so we'll be able to budget more accurately.
I worry if the state's taking over something, I don't want to bank on them saying you need this much money, and then all of a sudden.
Yeah, well, we don't have to transfer it. We can discuss that. But even if it's transferred into our education reserve, that doesn't mean we can't use it for that. So if we were to go way over in our healthcare spending and run a deficit for whatever reason, we could use the Ed Reserve to reverse that deficit. We did go over budget with our HRA this year, but as I said, savings in other areas, we didn't need to dip into that at all.
And why why not dip into it rather than using other savings?
It would have just made our fund balance larger, and then it would have just gone back into reserve, so it would just be a big cycle.
Yeah.
And we're going to be getting information mid-December on what FY21, on what those expenditures look like. There is a gap of 6 months that we're going to have to figure out because it's going to start on January 1, from what I read last week. I do think
of 2021.
21, yeah. I based on what I know about the models that both sides have put forward, I think they're going to be fairly predictive for us in terms of what our overall cost will be. So I don't think a model has been floated that is going to be a Hail Mary where we won't know where it's going to land.
Yes.
Not sure that metaphor works, but
We all were going there.
I get it, it's going long distance,
You know what I'm
like,
saying,
is it gonna land near the guy, or is it gonna be way short or way long?
There you go.
I watch a lot of football. She knows.
Any other questions for Brittany on the fund balance and this part of the discussion on money? All right. Well, I suppose that's a good segue into a further discussion on budget parameters. And are you taking the lead on that one, or?
I think I can start. Brittany can kind of enter in, and then the finance committee as well. So as we have done the last couple of years, we met with the finance committee today to start talking about what our vision for the budget development should look like, and specifically giving us a sense of where the board wants to land. And of course, it's hard to know where you're going to land due to all the variables that we don't yet know at this point in the year about the budget. Related to kind of what our approach to starting this process should be. We are, as we've talked about over the last couple of years, we are moving closer to the excess spending threshold each year. And so one of the considerations we have is looking at what are the needs across the district and looking at where the ceiling is from the state in terms of when we hit that spending threshold, which requires us to double tax our communities for every dollar above that threshold amount. Because we know that our neighbors are nearing it closer than we are, and you've probably read as the Northwest is projecting a shortfall of around $900,000, that $900,000 shortfall is because they're over the limit by $900,000. That's what they're saying when they say we're short that much money. They could still approve a budget beyond that, but then they would have to pass that to their communities who know that every dollar above the $17,800 or whatever it is going to be double taxed. So historically in ACSD, that has been something that boards, both individual boards and now the unified boards, have always looked to as this is how high we can go. So I asked Brittany today to bring to the Finance Committee an outline of what our spending looks like now in rolling it up by 3.5% or so, looking at our enrollment and our enrollment declines on average over the last few years to try to get a sense of how close are we away. If we roll things up, and most school districts, a roll up is kind of the standard practice. If you look across Vermont, you'll find that a roll up of the budget is pretty typical. In looking at those metrics, and as I stated earlier, we can't definitively say what our equalized pupil will number be because it's too complex and there are too many factors involved. But if we guesstimated at 1.5% with the 3.5 roll up, we're looking at hitting the threshold at this time next year in looking at FY22. So that is a consideration for us as we look at how much we roll up, also at a time when we know, at least in looking at FY22, we'll be budgeting for the 6th grade at MOMS, which will require some significant movement and change throughout the district. So our conversation with the board centered on both looking at this reality we're facing, this real financial reality, along with looking at the change that we're going through and what we believe is going to be significant change next year as the 6th grade moves, and whatever the staffing implications of that are, which we don't yet know. So for that reason, our recommendation was to try to maintain current service going into next year, being aware that we can't keep doing this forever because the threshold is increasing each year by the NEEP index, which is like a CPI index, roughly 2%. So spending is outstripping how the threshold is moving up. So we need to move into this budget season, I think, really aware of where we stand and where we're headed. At the same time, my recommendation is not that we completely suppress spending and really it would be cutting a number of positions going into next year to try to, for example, level fund, which we did 2 years ago. I think we can return to this next year with kind of more knowledge of what the MOM structure will look like and kind of work from there. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah.
Okay.
From a budget component, as we talked a little earlier in the committee, we really, assuming you don't reduce staff by a lot, you really have, what did we say, 9%?
Yeah. The control that we have over the budget really is only about 9 or 10% of the overall budget, right?
Other
And
than
everything
staff,
else is,
obviously.
other than,
Yeah.
everything else is dictated to us.
Right.
So you get yourself in trouble and there's not a lot of places to look.
Just to help folks reconcile what we just discussed with regards to having an excess funds available for the budget and this message, could you just help put those two things in balance for folks?
Sure. So fund balance means that we budgeted at a certain level and didn't spend all of that. As we talked about before, $1.2 million sounds like an awful lot. I'd like to have that excess in my bank account, but it's really only 3 to 4% of our overall budget. And as we talked about before, our fund balance the prior year was only $120,000. So that can be gone very quickly. Also, when we're talking about the excess spending threshold, we're talking about a per pupil cost. So that's not really a reflection of our overall budget so much as it is our spending per equalized pupil. So even though we had a variance in our spending, our equalized pupils continues to decrease. So that means that $1 this year is not going to go as far next year when you think about spreading it over less kids. So that's really what the excess spending threshold gets us to. And when we hit that threshold, any dollar over that is double taxed. And as Peter said, the excess spending threshold is a reflection of the NEEP, which is like a consumer price index. And when we just roll up wages and benefits, we're really looking at 3.5% to 4% without any other savings. We continue to lose students, and those things compound each other. So our spending's going like this, and our students are going, that was a terrible, what am I doing here? This. So it's compounding that, and it's making us get up to the threshold faster.
Good question. It's also getting up faster, as you mentioned. The state has compacted the rate of increase.
Yeah.
It used to be 3 to 4% in that, and now it's down to 2%. So in order to put the pressures from a state level on school spending, obviously, that has affected everybody by
It used to be just that the average spending, it used to be the average spending per equalized pupil, and that's now changed. Or it's been a number of years ago.
Yeah. So this is really just kind of to put it out there to think about as we move forward, not necessarily for a lengthy conversation tonight. We still have a significant section of our agenda to get through. So if there aren't any further questions on that, we'll continue to move forward. All right, so before we go into executive session to discuss the superintendent's evaluation, I just want to remind folks the Facilities Committee is meeting tomorrow, 4 to 6, location?
My office.
At the central office.
What are the hours again?
4 to 6.
4 to 6. If other board members wanted to go, it's okay, even if it's a quorum? Or,
Yes, as basically as audience members.
Right,
Yeah.
that's what I mean.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's okay for people to attend.
And if I could just talk with Jory, Chip, and Victoria a moment after the meeting, just to go over one little detail with that. All right. So I would happy to have a motion to go into executive session to discuss the superintendent's evaluation. Oh, I'm sorry.
you want to talk about the policy for next meeting too?
Oh,
Just let
I'm sorry.
people know.
Yeah, we did some more revisions tonight, so we'd like to submit it for review at the next board meeting for the students on the school board.
Do you want it
Okay.
for review or do you want to vote? I had said to warn it for a vote.
Okay, warn it for a vote then.
Okay, so can board members get access to that pretty early on and start thinking about it?
Yes.
I'm sure there'll be questions.
Yeah, I'll
We'll
give
get it
Sharon
out
Fletcher
as soon as
access and
possible.
she can.
Great. So please look for that, read it in preparation of our next meeting. If there's nothing else, then back to a motion to go into executive session. Thank you. All those in favor, say aye. And let's take 5 minutes while folks clear out, the TV cameras get taken down. And those of you at those end tables, if you wouldn't mind swinging your tables in.